All my dear class 6 boys, now you have a new video. In this video, now you are going to learn English honeysuckle lesson number 10. The name of the lesson is The Banyan Tree, written by Ruskin Vaughan. So, student, say in this story, The Banyan Tree, now we are going to read about a fight between a cobra and a mongoose. Part 1. Though the house and grounds belong to my grandparents, the magnificent old banyan tree was mine, simply because grandfather at 65 could no longer climb it. So in this first paragraph, say the writer or the narrator of the story, the banyan tree, say Ruskin Bond, say said that though the house and the grounds belonged to his grandparent, but the magnificent old banyan tree belonged to him simply because, say, his grandfather at 65 could no longer climb it. Its spreading branches which hung to the ground and took root again, forming a number of twisting pieces, gave me endless pleasure. Say the spreading branches of the banyan tree, say which hung to the ground and took root again, say forming a number of twisting pieces, say gave the narrator an endless pleasure. Among them were squirrels and snails and butterflies. Say among the twisted root of the banyan tree, say there were squirrels, snails, and butterflies flying there. The tree was older than the house, older than grandfather, as old as Dehradun itself. Said the banyan tree was older than the house of the narrator's grandparent. Then the banyan tree is also older than the narrator's grandfather. Say the banyan tree is as old as the city Dehradun itself. I could hide myself in its branches behind thick green leaves and spy on the world below. Say the narrator himself, say, could hide among the branches and among the leaves of the banyan tree, and he can look secretly from among the leaves of the banyan tree. My first friend was a small gray squirrel. Say the first friend of the narrator was a small gray squirrel. Arching his back and sniffing into the air, he seemed at first to resent my invasion of his privacy. Say at first, say the squirrel seemed to resent the narrator's invasion of his privacy. But when he found that I did not arm myself with catapult or air gun, he became friendly. Say when the squadron found that the narrator they did not harm anything to him with the catapult or the ear gun. Say at the time, the squirrel became friendly to the narrator. And when I started bringing him pieces of cake and biscuit, he grew quite bold and was soon taking morsel from hand. Say when the narrator started bringing him say some pieces of cake and biscuit. At that time, say the squirrel grew bold and the squirrel was soon taking the morsel of cake and biscuit from the narrator's hand. Before long, he was delving into my pockets and helping himself to whatever he could find. Then after that, the squirrel entered inside say, the narrator's pocket and he is searching for anything inside the narrator's pocket. He was a very young squirrel. Say the squirrel was very young, and his friends and relatives probably thought him foolish and headstrong for trusting a human. Say the squirrel's friend and relatives thought that the squirrel was foolish and he was headstrong for trusting a human being. In the spring, when the banyan tree was full of small red figs, birds of all kinds would flock into its branches. Say in the spring season, say when the banyan tree was full of small red pigs, say at that time, say birds of all kinds, say would flock together into the branches of the banyan tree. The red-bottomed bulbul, cheerful and greedy, parrots, myna, and crows squabbling with one another. Say birds like say red-bottomed bulbul, then parrots, myna, and crows say were surfing say with one another by sitting say on the branches of the banyan tree during this spring season. During the fig season, the banyan tree was the noisiest place in the garden. Say during the fig season, say the banyan tree was the noisiest place say in the garden. Fig season means say the time when the banyan tree bear fruits on its branches. Halfway up the tree, I had built a crude platform where I would spend the afternoons when it was not too hot. Say halfway up the banyan tree, say the narrator built a crude platform, say where he would spend the afternoons when it was not too hot. I could read there, propping myself up against the tree with a cushion from the living room. Say the narrator say could read there leaning against the banyan tree say by sitting on a cushion say taking from his living room. Treasure Island, Huckleberry Finn, and the story of Dr. Dolittle Wire. Some of the books that made up my banyan tree library. By reading the book like Treasure Island, Huckleberry Finn, And the story of Dr. Dolittle, say the narrator, met the banyan tree, a library. When I did not feel like reading, I could look down through the leaves at the wall below. Say when the narrator say did not like to read book at the time, he could look down through the leaves at the wall below. That means he looked down at the ground. And on one particular afternoon, I had a grandstand view of that classic of the Indian wilds, a fight between a mongoose and a cobra. One particular afternoon, the narrator had witnessed a classical fight between a mongoose and a cobra. Part 2. The warm breezes of approaching summer had sent everyone, including the gardener, into the house. Say during the summer, say the warm breezes, say had sent everyone, say including the gardener, into the house. I was feeling drowsy myself, wondering if I should go to the pond and have a swim with Ramu and the buffaloes. When I saw a huge black cobra gliding out of a clump of cactus. Say when the narrator saw a huge black cobra say gliding out of a clump of cactus. Say at that time the narrator wondering say whether he should go to the phone and to have a swim with Ramu and the buffalo. At the same time, a mongoose emerged from the bushes and went straight for the cobra. Say at the same time, say a mongoose also came out from the bushes and he went straight towards the cobra. In a clearing beneath the banyan tree, in bright sunshine, they came face to face. Say in the clearing beneath of the banyan tree, say in the bright sunshine, say the cobra and the mongoose came face to face. The cobra knew only too well that the gray mongoose, say 3 feet long, was a superb fighter, clever and aggressive. Say the cobra, say only knew, say that the gray mongoose, say who is 3 feet long, was a super fighter, clever and aggressive. But the cobra too was a skillful and experienced fighter. But the cobra himself was also a skillful and experienced fighter. He could move swiftly and strike with the speed of light, and the sacks behind his long, sharp fangs were full of deadly poison. Say, the cobra say, could also move swiftly, and he can strike with the speed of light. And he thought that the sack say, behind his long, sharp fangs were also full of deadly poison. It was to be a battle of champions. Then the cobra thought that it was to be a battle of champions between him and the mongoose. Hissing defiance, his forked tongue darting in and out, the cobra raised 3 of his 6 feet off the ground. Say the cobra say raised 3 of his 6 feet long body off the ground by making hissing sound, and he pulled in and out his tongue and spread his broad spectacle hood. Then the cobra spread out his broad spectacle hood. The mongoose bushes his tail. Then the mongoose also bushes his tail. The long hair on his spine stood up. Then his long hair on his spine stood up. Though the combatants were unaware of my presence in the tree, they were soon made aware of the arrival of 2 other spectators. Though the 2 combatants, the mongoose and the cobra, were unaware of the narrator who is sitting on the tree, they were soon made aware of the arrival of 2 other spectators. One was a myna, the other a jungle crow. The 2 other spectators were a myna and a jungle crow. They had seen these preparations for battle. The myna and the jungle crow had seen the preparation of the cobra and the mongoose for the battle, and had settled on the cactus towards the outcome. Then the myna and the crow seated on the cactus towards the result of the fight. Had they been content only to watch, all would have been well with both of them. If the myna and the crow present there only to watch, all would have been well. The cobra stood on the defensive, swaying slowly from side to side, trying to mesmerize the mongoose into making a false move. In order to make the mongoose a false move, the cobra stood on the defensive mode by swaying slowly from side to side. But the mongoose knew the power of his opponent's glassy, unwinking eyes and refused to meet them. The mongoose knew the power of his opponent's glassy, unwinking eyes, so he refused to make those false moves. Instead, he fixed his gaze at a point just below the cobra's hood and opened the attack. Instead of making the false move, the mongoose fixed his gaze at a point just below the cobra's hood, and he opened for the attack, moving forward quickly until he was just within the cobra's reach. The mongoose made a pretended move to one side in order to make the cobra a false attack. Immediately, the cobra struck. Say when the mongoose made a pretended move to one side, immediately the cobra struck to the mongoose. His great hood came down so swiftly that I thought nothing could save the mongoose. Say the cobra's hood came down very quickly that the narrator thought nothing could save the mongoose. But the little fellow jumped neatly to one side. Say what? The little mongoose jumped neatly to one side and darted in as swiftly as the cobra. So just like the cobra, the little mongoose moved quickly, biting the snake on the back, and the mongoose bit the cobra on his back and darting away again out of reach. Then after biting the cobra on its back, the mongoose moved quickly away from the cobra. At the same moment that the cobra struck the crow, and the myna hurled themselves at him, only to collide heavily in the mid-ear. At the same moment when the cobra struck the crow and the myna tried to attack at the cobra, but the myna and the crow were collided each other heavily in the mid-ear. Striking insult at each other, they returned to the cactus plant. Say, after they collided heavily in the mid-ear, the myna and the crow make a high-pitched cry at each other, and they return to the cactus plant. A few drops of blood glistened on the cobra's back. Then a few drops of blood came out from the cobra's back. The cobra struck and missed. So again, the cobra struck to the mongoose, but he missed the mongoose. Again, the mongoose sprang aside, jumped in, and bite. So again, the mongoose jumped aside, and he jumped onto the cobra, and he bite the cobra again at this time. Again, the birds dive at the snake, bumped into each other instead, and return shrieking to the safety of the cactus. So again, the two birds, the myna and the crow, dive at the snake, but this time, again, they collided each other, and they returned by making a high-pitched sound to the safety of the cactus. The third round followed the same course as the first, but with one dramatic difference. See, the third round of the fight between the mongoose and the cobra followed the same course as the first round fight, but this time with one dramatic difference is there. The crow and the myna, still determined to take part in the proceedings, dive at the cobra, but this time they miss each other as well as their mark. Say, In this third round of the fight between the mongoose and the cobra, the crow and the myna were still taking part in the fight. They dive at the cobra, but this time again they miss each other as well as their mark. The myna flew on and reached its bird. The myna flew on and he reached his bird. But the crow tried to pull off in mid-air and turn back. But this time the crow tried to pull himself up in the mid-air and he turned back. In the second that it took the bird to do this, the cobra wiped his head back and struck with great force, his snout thudding against the crow's body. When the crow was trying to pull off himself in the mid-air, the cobra struck with his head to the crow's body with a great force. I saw the bird flung nearly 20 feet across the garden. The narrator saw the crow flung nearly 20 feet across the garden. It fluttered about for a while, then lay still. Then the crow fluttered his wing for about a moment, but after that, the crow lay still on the ground. The myna remained on the cactus plant, but the myna still remained himself on the cactus plant. And when the snake and the mongoose returned to the fight, very wisely decided not to interfere again. But this time, the myna decided not to interfere in the fight between the snake and the mongoose. The cobra was weakening, and the mongoose, walking fearlessly up to it, raised himself on his short legs and, with a lightning snap, had the big snake by the snout. This time, the cobra was weakening, but the mongoose was walking fearlessly up to the snake and he raised himself on his short leg and with a lightning speed he struck against the cobra by the snout. The cobra writhed and lashed about in a frightening manner and even coiled itself about the mongoose, but to no avail. This time the cobra writhed and lashed about in a frightening manner, and he even tried to coil itself about the mongoose, but he is not succeeded to do so. The little fellow hung grimly on until the snake had ceased to struggle. The little fellow, the mongoose, hung grimly on until the snake stopped to fight. He then smelled along its quivering leg, gripped it round the hood and drag it into the bushes. Then the mongoose smell the cobra and he gripped the cobra around the hood and he pulled the cobra into the bushes. The myna dropped cautiously to the ground, hopped about, peered into the bushes from a safe distance, and then, with a shrill cry of congratulation, flew away. Then, after the mongoose dragged the cobra into the bushes, the myna dropped himself cautiously to the ground, and he hopped about and he looked into the bushes from a safe distance, and then, with a shrill cry of congratulation, the myna flew away. This story is written by Ruskin Bond. So, student, all the question and answer will be provided by the teacher who took Google Meet class. Thank you for watching my YouTube video.